You spend your days in the quiet dark, here in the archives of dust. That's your name for it. The official title is something much longer, something far more important sounding. But it is just dust and data in the end. Tomes of crystallized memory line shelves a kilometer high. They stretch into darkness beyond the reach of your float lamp. Each one is a dead world, or a forgotten treaty, a lost lineage. You are the last archivist of your line, a lonely post for a lonely soul. Your work is a slow dance with ghosts. You catalog the final words of entire civilizations. You ensure their truth is not lost to the void. Most days are the same. You drift through the silent canyons of information. The hum of the archive is your only companion. But today is different. You found something that does not belong. It is a data shard, small and obsidian black. It was wedged behind a dynastic registry for a forgotten royal house. The shard is not in your catalog. It has no acquisition date, no point of origin. It feels ancient and warm to the touch, a flicker of energy still sleeping deep inside. Your diagnostic tools call it a relic, a piece of technology from before the Great Unification, before humanity spread so wide and thin across the stars. It should not be here, not in this pristine, ordered tomb. You take it back to your small workstation, a circle of light in an ocean of shadow. The air feels heavy with expectation. You can almost feel the dust watching you. You slide the shard into your analysis port. For a moment, nothing. Your systems strain against encryption that is impossibly old. Codes that are more like woven myths than software. Then, a crackle of static through your speakers. A whisper from a forgotten age. It is a voice, faint and distorted by time itself. It speaks a name you have only heard in children's stories, a name dismissed by every serious historian, Captain Eva Rostova. The whisper becomes a torrent of information. A story unfolds before you. Not a myth, not a legend, a report, a memory. It tells of a forgotten war, a conflict so terrible it was erased from official history. The data blooms in your mind's eye. It paints a picture of a galaxy in flames. This was a war for survival, a desperate last stand against an enemy of impossible scale. The shard shows you her face. Captain Eva Rostova. She is not the marble statue from the fables. Her eyes are sharp, filled with a fire that time could not extinguish. She stands on the bridge of a ship, unlike any you have seen. Her uniform is practical and worn. Her expression is a mask of calm determination. Behind that mask, you see the weight she carries. The fate of every human world rested on her shoulders. She faced an empire that did not conquer. It did not negotiate. It consumed. The data calls them the Vorlag Ascendancy, a name that sends a cold shiver through you. An empire of locusts wearing starships as their shells. They moved from system to system, a relentless tide of consumption. Entire worlds were stripped of life, of resources, even of their very atmospheres. Nothing was left but a silent, barren rock. The war had been going badly for humanity. Fleet after fleet had been thrown against the Vorlag. Each one was broken against their might. The enemy ships were immense, city-sized vessels of cold, black metal. They moved with a purpose that was terrifying to behold. Humanity was losing ground. The outer colonies had already gone silent. Communication cut off, one by one. The shard shows you the tyrant's shadow. It falls across a map of the known galaxy. The Vorlag Ascendancy was more than an army. It was a singular, hungry organism. It viewed other forms of life as mere resources, fuel for its endless expansion. Their society was a pyramid of absolute obedience. At its peak sat the Grand Executor. Their doctrine was simple. A system was targeted for consumption. The Vorlag fleet would arrive. They would demand tribute as a sign of submission. Raw materials, technology, even populations for labor. It was a test. Any resistance was met with overwhelming force. Any compliance only delayed the inevitable stripping of that world. It was a game they always won. Humanity was their next grand project. Our star systems were rich. Our technology was intriguing. We were a prize waiting to be claimed. The Vorlag saw our colonies as appetizers, a small taste before the main course, Earth itself. The shadow of their vanguard fleets touched the edges of our home system. Panic was a quiet poison spreading through the inner worlds. Governments broadcast messages of hope. They spoke of resilience, of fighting spirit. They showed victories that were clever lies. Tiny skirmishes presented as major triumphs. But the truth was clear to those in command. Humanity was on a countdown to extinction. Our fleets were outmatched. Our technology was generations behind. We had no weapon that could stop them, no shield that could turn them away, except one. One ship against the infinite void. A secret so deep it was known to fewer than 10 people. The shard reveals its name to you. The Vagabond. It was not a battleship. It was not a cruiser. It was an experimental vessel. A ghost. Its hull was a sleek, matte black, designed to absorb light and sensor scans. It looked more like a sliver of night than a starship. The Vagabond was humanity's last desperate gamble. It was built around a technology that defied known star science, a drive that did not tear a hole in space-time to travel. Instead, it skimmed the edge of another reality, a place of pure energy and thought. For brief moments, the ship could cease to exist in our universe. It could become a phantom, a ghost in the static. Captain Eva Rostova had overseen its construction. The ship was her child, born of desperation and genius. She knew its every secret, its every flaw. The ghost drive was unstable. It put an incredible strain on the ship and its pilot. Only she had the will to control it. Only she could dance on that razor's edge between realities. Her mission was not to engage the Vorlag fleet. That would be suicide. Her task was surgical. She was to be a phantom predator. She would hunt the hunters. She would strike at their command structures. She would bleed the beast one cut at a time. The hope was to sow chaos, to disrupt the perfect logic of the Vorlag war machine, to buy time that humanity did not have. The data stream shifts. You are now seeing through the ship's sensors. You see what she saw. Ava used stellar nurseries as her hunting grounds. Vast clouds of gas and dust where new stars were being born. The intense radiation and magnetic chaos of these regions were a nightmare for normal sensors. For the Vorlag, it was a blinding fog. For Eva, it was the perfect cover. She moved the Vagabond through the glowing cosmic clouds, a ghost in the beautiful, violent static of creation. On the bridge, there was a quiet tension. Her crew was small, just 20 souls. Each one was the best in their field. They had all lost someone to the Vorlag. Their dedication to Eva was absolute. They trusted her with their lives, and with the future. You see her studying the tactical display, a web of light showing the nebula's currents. A trio of Vorlag scout ships patrolled the edge of the cloud. They moved with arrogant confidence. Their sensors swept the area. They found nothing but gas and stellar radiation. They were completely blind to the predators stalking them from within the storm. Eva's voice is calm as she gives her orders. "Bring us closer," she says. "Match their course and speed." The vagabond glides silently through the glowing tendrils of gas. It moves like a great shark in dark water. It gets so close that the crew can see the enemy ships with their own eyes. Ugly, brutalist designs of gray metal. They pass just a few thousand kilometers away, oblivious. One of the crew jokes that their coffee is probably terrible. Ava allows herself a small, thin smile. It vanishes as quickly as it appears. The target was not the scout patrol. They were just the bait. Ava was playing a longer game. The scouts were on a standard route, a route that would lead them to their rendezvous, with a much larger prize, a Vorlag command and control fleet, the brain that directed the movements of hundreds of warships in this sector. Eva's plan was impossibly bold. Some might have called it insane. She would let the scouts lead her straight to the heart of the enemy's power. Then she would perform a single, perfect strike, an attack so fast and so precise, the Vorlag would not even know what hit them. It was like trying to sever a nerve in a body of armored steel. The vagabond shadowed the scouts for 12 silent hours, deeper into enemy territory. The crew worked in hushed efficiency. Every system was checked and rechecked. The ghost drive was brought to full power. It hummed with a dangerous energy that resonated through the deck plates. The ship trembled, eager to be unleashed. Then, the command fleet appeared, a dozen massive warships surrounding a flagship. The flagship was a beast of a vessel, a fortress in the void. It coordinated the entire sector fleet. Taking it out would be like cutting the head from a serpent. The Vorlag ships moved into a tight formation, their shields overlapping, a wall of impenetrable energy, impenetrable to any normal weapon. "This is our moment," Eva announced. Her voice cut through the tension on the bridge. "Prepare for the jump. Target the flagship's command bridge." The ship's navigator made the final calculations. A jump of less than 100 kilometers. A micro jump, something thought to be impossible. A move that would place them inside the enemy's shield perimeter. "Execute," Eva commanded. The world outside the view screen dissolved into a tunnel of light. For a fraction of a second, the vagabond was gone. It reappeared in the very heart of the Vorlag formation. Alarms screamed across the enemy fleet. But it was too late. The ghost ship was there for only 3 seconds. In that tiny window of time, it unleashed hell. A full volley from its main weapons. Torpedoes forged with experimental warheads. Lances of pure energy designed to pierce layered shielding. The volley struck the Vorlag flagship's bridge. A silent, brilliant flash of light. The command section vaporized instantly. The nerve center of the fleet erased. Before the flash even faded, Eva gave the order. "Jump us out, now!" The ghost drive engaged again. The vagabond vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. It left behind a scene of absolute chaos. The flagship drifted, headless and blind. The other warships, their command links severed, began to panic. Their automated defense systems fired wildly, striking their own ships. The perfect formation became a circular firing squad. Eva and her crew watched the chaos from the safety of the Nebula. They had torn a gaping hole in the enemy's armor. They had proven that the Vorlag were not gods. They could be hurt. They could be broken. For the first time since the war began, humanity had drawn blood. A single crack had appeared in the tyrant's shadow. And it was just the beginning. The dust of 1,000 forgotten ages settled on everything. It coated shelves that reached into engineered darkness. It formed tiny dunes on data prisms and forgotten memory cores. This was the grand archive of Xylos, a place where history came to die. And its sole caretaker was a man named Elian. He was less a librarian and more a tomb keeper. His task was simple. He was to preserve what was, not to discover what was lost. The elders were very clear on this point. Discovery led to questions. Questions led to trouble. Elian preferred a life with very little trouble. He moved with a quiet grace through the silent canyons of information. His light staff cast a soft, lonely glow on the towers of data. Then he saw it. A flicker. Something was out of place. Tucked behind a row of corroded war ledgers was a shard. It was not a standard archive prism. It was smooth, dark, and utterly alien. It hummed with a low energy that made the hairs on his arms stand up. This shard was not dead information. It was sleeping. Elian knew he should leave it. He should report it. He should follow the rules that kept him safe and blissfully bored. But the shard whispered to him, not in words, but in a feeling, a sense of immense distance and a profound, aching loneliness. He reached out. His fingers brushed against its cool surface, and the universe fell away. Darkness exploded into a torrent of static and light. The silent archive was gone. Elian was adrift in a sea of broken images and fractured sounds. He felt a presence, a will of iron forged in the heart of a dying star. A name echoed in the storm, a name he thought was only a child's scary story. Captain Eva Rostova. The data shard was a ghost box. It held the last testament of a forgotten soldier. Her voice cut through the noise, strong and clear. It was laced with exhaustion, but burned with defiance. She spoke of a war that was never recorded, a war against an enemy that consumed stars and erased civilizations from existence. They were a tide of silent gray ships. The shard showed him glimpses of her reality. He saw the bridge of her ship, a place of quiet focus and grim determination. He saw her crew, their faces young, but their eyes ancient. They looked at their captain with a trust that transcended fear. Eva Rostova was not a myth. She was real, and she stood between humanity and utter annihilation. Her story was not one of glorious fleets clashing in the void. It was a story of shadows, a desperate, lonely fight waged at the edge of known space. The shard did not feel like a record. It felt like a memory, her memory. And Elian was now its unwilling passenger, hurtling back through time to witness the end of everything. The enemy had a name, the Vorlag Ascendancy. The shard showed them in their cold, terrible glory. Their ships were geometric nightmares, perfect shapes that moved without sound or visible propulsion. They did not communicate with words. They issued decrees. They were the inevitable tide, and civilizations were sandcastles. Their terms were always the same. Surrender your worlds. Surrender your resources. Surrender your history. Your culture would be archived, a footnote in their vast, sterile library of conquests. Your people would be integrated, your individuality erased. They were not conquerors. They were collectors, and their collection was about to expand. Humanity was next on their list. The system of Sol, with its vibrant blue jewel, was a prize. The Ascendancy fleet arrived at the edge of the Oort cloud. It was a fleet so large it blotted out the stars. It sent one message, a simple declarative statement of ownership. Humanity had one cycle to comply, to surrender its cradle. Leaders on Earth and Mars scrambled. They broadcast pleas for negotiation. They offered tribute. They were met with absolute silence. The Vorlag did not negotiate. You either became part of the Ascendancy, or you became dust. For humanity, a species that had just begun to walk between the stars, it was a death sentence. But humanity had a secret, a desperate last-ditch effort hidden from all official records. A ship built in secret for a war no one wanted to believe was coming. It was an experimental vessel, a phantom. Its name was whispered among its small, dedicated crew, the Vagabond, and it had a captain with nothing left to lose. Captain Eva Rostova stood on the bridge of the Vagabond. The ship was a paradox of design. It was ugly, asymmetrical, and bristling with strange devices. It was not a warship built for a battle line. It was a scalpel designed for surgery in the dark. Its hull was coated in sensor-refracting panels. Its engines burned a fuel that left almost no trace. Eva was given one mission, a mission deemed impossible by the strategists who conceived it. She was to be a ghost, a whisper. She was to make the Vorlag feel fear, an emotion they had not experienced in 10,000 years of conquest. An entire species was depending on her to become a monster in the dark. Her crew was a collection of the brilliant and the disgraced, scientists who pushed theories too far, pilots who broke too many rules. Each one was a genius in their own right. Each one was an outcast. They were the only ones willing to board a ship with a 50-50 chance of simply vanishing on its first jump. She looked at her people. Their faces were tense, but their eyes held a flicker of her own fire. They were not soldiers of a grand navy. They were pirates about to rob the gods themselves. "Helm," Eva said, her voice calm and steady. "Take us out, and do it quietly." The Vagabond slipped from its hidden dock. It vanished into the void, without a ripple. Humanity's only hope was now a ghost. Eva knew she could not fight the Vorlag fleet. To face it was to be erased. So she did not go to the battle. She went to the nurseries, the vast churning clouds of gas and dust where new stars were born. These stellar nurseries were chaotic and dangerous, full of radiation and gravitational whirlpools. No sane commander would take their fleet inside. The Vorlag were anything but insane. They were logical, predictable. They saw the nurseries as useless obstacles. Eva saw them as the perfect hunting ground. The Vagabond's strange design came alive in the chaos. Its sensors drank in the radiation, using it to mask their own signature. The ship could drift for weeks, looking like just another lump of charged plasma. She taught her crew to think like predators. They watched Vorlag patrols from the swirling mists of newborn stars. They learned their schedules, their formations, their energy signatures. They became masters of patience. They were a phantom hiding in the cosmic fog, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Her first target was not a warship. It was a string of automated freighters. They were hauling processed materials from a conquered moon back to the main fleet. Destroying them would be a minor annoyance, a pinprick. But it would be a pinprick from an impossible direction. It would be a signal. We are here, and we are not afraid. The attack was over in 17 seconds. The Vagabond drifted from the glowing heart of a protostar. Its primary weapon was not a laser or a missile. It was a localized gravity lance. It fired a precise, focused tear in space-time. The lead freighter buckled and then twisted into a pretzel of shattered metal. The chain reaction was immediate. One by one, the cargo ships imploded. They vanished from Vorlag sensors without a single energy weapon being fired. It was not a battle. It was an accident, an anomaly. That was what the Vorlag patrol logs would report. But Eva knew better. She had drawn first blood. She had made the ghost real. The reports reached the Vorlag command vessel, a vast obsidian hexagon that served as the fleet's brain. The loss of the freighters was noted as a navigational hazard, an anomaly within the nebula. The logical conclusion was to avoid that sector. But then it happened again. This time, it was a long-range sensor drone. It simply vanished. Then a scout ship, sent to investigate the drone's disappearance, went silent. No distress call, no debris. It was just gone. The Vorlag commanders analyzed the data. There was no enemy signature, no weapon discharge. It was impossible, an act of the universe itself. But the universe was not supposed to be hostile. It was supposed to be orderly. Eva escalated her campaign. She was a phantom striking at the edges of their web. She targeted their supply lines, their communication relays, their lonely pickets. She never hit the same way twice. Sometimes it was the gravity lance. Sometimes it was a single, perfectly placed torpedo that disabled a ship, leaving it adrift and blind. She was a puzzle the Vorlag could not solve. The perfect strike came on the 37th day. A Vorlag command cruiser, a smaller version of the Hexagon, moved to a forward position. It was commanding a flotilla that was systematically stripping a barren planet. Eva had been waiting for this. She had seeded the planet's thin asteroid ring with micromines days earlier. They were completely inert, just cold rocks. She piloted the Vagabond on a daring flyby, a close pass that was designed to be seen. Just for a second. The cruiser's sensors flared. An anomaly, a ghost ship. For the first time, they had a target. The flotilla turned, weapons charging, eager to crush this pest. They moved right into the asteroid field. Eva sent a single tight beam transmission, a simple activation code. The micromines came alive. They didn't explode. They simply engaged tiny, powerful thrusters. They changed the orbits of 1,000 small rocks. The carefully planned chain reaction turned the asteroid field into a shotgun blast. The Vorlag ships were pummeled by rock and ice, traveling at impossible speeds. Their shields flared and failed. It was chaos. It was beautiful. And the Vorlag fleet was finally reeling. The news of the broken flotilla echoed through the Ascendancy. The reports were no longer dismissed as anomalies. This was a deliberate, intelligent, and invisible enemy. It was a cancer in their perfect, orderly invasion. The Grand Executor of the Vorlag Ascendancy reviewed the data. He was a being of pure, cold logic, encased in a shimmering chrome shell. His title was a descriptor, Executor Kalen. Kalen was the being the Ascendancy deployed to solve impossible problems. He had pacified rebelling star nations. He had charted paths through black hole clusters. He was known for his flawless strategy. He saw the universe as a grand equation. Every problem had a logical solution. This human ghost was just a new variable he had to account for. He watched the recordings of Eva's attacks. He saw the impossible vectors, the traceless disappearances, the use of the environment as a weapon. Other commanders saw chaos and witchcraft. Kalen saw a pattern. He saw a mind at work that was as sharp and as ruthless as his own. He felt something that no Vorlag had felt in millennia, a flicker of professional respect. He made a vow, not to his superiors, but to himself. He would not just destroy this ghost. He would understand it. He would dissect its strategy, predict its every move. He would corner it, trap it, and then personally watch as its ship was pulled apart, piece by piece. He dispatched his own elite hunters. The game had changed. It was no longer an invasion. It was a duel. And Executor Kalen had never lost. The duel began in the Serpent's Coil Nebula. Kalen's hunters were different. They were smaller, faster ships. They moved in unpredictable wolf packs. They began to probe the stellar nurseries, ignoring the danger. They were hunting her in her own territory. Ava felt the pressure immediately. Her hiding spots were no longer safe. The ghost was now the one being haunted. She would lay a trap, only to find Kalen had anticipated it. He left a bait ship open to attack, but surrounded it with invisible sensor nets. The vagabond nearly flew into one. Only a last-second burn from her pilot saved them. It was a close call. Too close. This new enemy was thinking like her. He was learning. Their conflict became a lethal dance across a dozen star sectors. Ava would strike a convoy in the Orion Arm. Kalen would have a fleet waiting for her at the only logical escape route. She would be forced to pull off a desperate, high-risk maneuver to slip through his grasp. She once skimmed the accretion disk of a black hole, letting the gravitational pull slingshot her to safety. Her crew felt their bones creak under the strain. Kalen adapted. He started using her own tactics against her. He would trigger small nova bursts from unstable stars to flush her out of hiding. He used gravity tethers to subtly alter the paths of comets, trying to herd her into a kill box. It was a chess match played with stars as the pieces. Ava won some exchanges, Kalen won others, but he was slowly, methodically closing the board. She was running out of places to hide. Ava looked at her star charts. Her options were dwindling. Kalen's net was closing. His logic was relentless. He had her boxed in. She had one last, desperate move. A gambit so risky, so utterly final, that her own tactical computer advised against it with a 72% chance of self-destruction. It was perfect. There was a star in a nearby sector, a blue supergiant. Its name on the old charts was Lyra's Kiss. It was old, unstable, and showing all the signs of imminent collapse. It was a bomb waiting for a trigger. A supernova was inevitable. Maybe in 1,000 years. Maybe in a week. Eva decided to advance the schedule. She leaked a false distress call, a masterful piece of acting from her comms officer. It spoke of critical engine failure, of a ship trapped in a decaying orbit around the dying star. It was the perfect bait, a wounded animal, cornered and helpless. It was a lure that Kalen, in his cold logic, would find irresistible. The ghost was finally trapped. He would come for the kill. He had to. His flawless logic demanded it. The Vorlag fleet arrived, a perfect spearhead of chrome hunters with Kalen's command ship at the center. They saw the vagabond on their sensors. It was venting plasma, limping pathetically, just as the false signal had promised. Kalen's ships moved in, forming a perfect sphere of death around the crippled human vessel. There was no escape. Eva stood on her bridge. The ship was not crippled. The plasma vents were for show. She was ready. "Helm," she said, her voice a low whisper. "Take us in. Dance us along the edge." The vagabond turned, not away from the Vorlag, but directly toward the raging blue star. It plunged into the star's upper atmosphere. The ship screamed. Alarms blared across the bridge. The outer hull temperature soared to impossible levels. On the main view screen, waves of blue and white fire washed over them. They were surfing on the edge of a sun. The ship's shields, designed for weapons fire, buckled under the raw, chaotic energy. They flickered, threatening to collapse at any moment. "Shields at 40%, her tactical officer yelled. "We are losing integrity." The crew was strapped into their acceleration couches. The force of the star's gravity well pressed down on them. It felt like a giant hand trying to crush the ship. This was the dance on the brink, a terrifying ballet between the ship's technology and the universe's raw power. Eva's eyes were fixed on the chronometer. Her timing had to be perfect. Too early, and Kalen would see the trap. too late, and her ship would be vaporized before she could act. She was pushing her crew and her vessel past every known limit. They were holding together through sheer force of will. She was not just navigating a dying star. She was provoking it. Executor. Kalen watched the human ship dive into the star. It was an illogical act of desperation, a final, pointless gesture of defiance. His sensors showed the ship's shields failing. Its hull was being superheated. The Ghost was committing suicide. His logic was confirmed. The problem had solved itself. "Advance the fleet," Kalen ordered. "I want to record the ship's destruction." His hunters moved forward, eager to witness the end of their long chase. They followed the vagabond into the star's volatile corona. Their own powerful shields protected them from the heat. Their arrogance made them blind. They saw a dying ship. They failed to see the dying star. Ava saw them coming. They were right where she wanted them, lured into the kill zone by their own certainty. She looked at her science officer. "Is it ready?" The officer nodded, his face pale but his eyes resolute. "The star is primed, Captain. The resonance cascade has begun. It's a chain reaction now. It cannot be stopped." The blue giant began to shudder. It pulsed, sending out massive waves of energy. The Vorlag ships were rocked by the blasts. Their commanders reported the unexpected stellar activity. Kalen dismissed it. The star's death throes were irrelevant. The human was the target. His focus on his prey was absolute. And it would be his doom. The star began to collapse. The brilliant blue light folded in on itself. A moment of impossible silence descended on the system. For a heartbeat, there was only darkness. Kalen's fleet, caught in the immense gravitational pull, was dragged inward. Their engines fought against it, but it was like trying to fight the tide of an ocean. On the bridge of the Vagabond, Eva gave her final order. "Now." Her engineer slammed his hand down on a shielded panel. He initiated a full, uncontrolled core overload. The ship's experimental heart, the source of its phantom nature, was set to detonate. Not with the force of a weapon, but with the focused energy of a star shaper. Just as the supernova erupted outwards, the Vagabond's core blew. It was a directed explosion, a focused blast of pure energy shaped by the ship's gravity lance. It carved a pattern into the expanding shell of gas and fire. A final, defiant message. It was her ship's call sign, a stylized V with a line struck through it. Her signature written in the fire of a newborn nebula. The blast wave of the supernova was immense, a wall of pure energy and radiation moving at nearly the speed of light. It struck the Vorlag fleet head-on. Their shields, already strained by the star's corona, shattered like glass. Ship after ship was vaporized. The Chrome Hunters, the command cruisers, Kalen's obsidian hexagon, all of them were scoured from existence in a single, silent flash. The wave of destruction washed over the entire sector. The Vorlag invasion force, a tide that had consumed 100 worlds, was broken. Its command structure was annihilated. Its most celebrated executor was gone. The scattered remnants of the fleet, leaderless and terrified, turned and fled. They never returned. Humanity was saved. The news spread slowly at first, garbled reports of the Vorlag fleet retreating. Then, silence. The great enemy was gone. There were celebrations on Earth and Mars, parades and speeches. But no one knew the true cost. No one knew the name of the woman who had paid the price for their dawn. Her story was buried, a classified file in a war that was never officially fought. Her sacrifice was a secret. Back in the Grand Archive of Xylos, Elian fell to his knees. The data shard went cold in his hand. The torrent of images ceased. He was back in the silent, dusty stacks. But the silence was different now. It was filled with the echo of a supernova. He was shaking. The story was impossible. A forgotten captain, a ghost ship, a single act of sacrifice that saved an entire species. He scrambled to his feet. He ran to a public data terminal, his hands trembling as he typed. He pulled up the modern star charts. He input the coordinates from the shard's final data packet. The screen resolved on a familiar, breathtaking image. The Vagabond's Rest, a famous nebula known for its beautiful, ethereal structure. And there, at its very heart, was the shape. Faint but unmistakable. A V with a line through it. Scientists had called it a natural formation. A curious coincidence of stellar gas and magnetic fields. They were wrong. It was not a coincidence. It was a signature. Elian stared at the screen, the truth of it washing over him. The myth was real. The hero was real. And he was the only person in the galaxy who knew it. His life of quiet, orderly preservation was over. He now had a new duty. A duty to a ghost. He had to tell her story. He had to make sure that Captain Eva Rostova was not just a whisper on a forgotten data shard. He had to turn a myth back into history. The galaxy needed to know who wrote her name in the stars. Eva's legacy was not just a story. It was a landmark. A monument of fire and light visible across 100 light years. For thousands of years, ships had navigated by its glow. Children looked at it through telescopes and made wishes. Lovers saw it as a symbol of cosmic beauty. They called it the Vagabond's Rest, a place of peace. They never knew it was a tombstone, a marker for a fleet of tyrants and for the one woman who stopped them. They did not see a peaceful nebula. They saw a warning, a testament, a declaration carved into the fabric of the universe itself. It said that humanity would not go quietly into the dark. It said that even in the face of impossible odds, one ship, one person can be enough. Her name was written in Nebulae, and it would burn there forever.